in my boat.
Court is in session with Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan in Sacktown.
Oh, must be Rhino. Welcome in to a Tuesday, a Jerry Reynolds Tuesday on the King's Court. We break open the week with you. Training camp is a-going for the Kings. Are you excited? I am. We're going to talk about some of the news coming out of Media Day yesterday. Also, Jerry Reynolds, 2:30 right here on the King's Court. Get your questions in the chat. Certainly would love to hear from all of you. We're going to talk about training camp, certainly the passing of Dikembe Mutombo. Pete Rose, man, tough day. It's been a tough year in sports altogether. So we've got all that. Certainly the NFL weekend. We have not hit on any of it. Yes, my Seahawks got blasted. I know. Go ahead. Hit me up in the chat. I put the Seahawks as winning last night's game. Dead wrong there. Nah, not for Rhino. Anyways, we're brought to you by Bennett's Westside Grill in Rockland. Happy to have everybody here. A lot going on. Baseball wild card games have started in the playoffs as we sit this second. The Tigers going into Houston. They're up 3-0 right now, bottom of the eighth. Royals and the Orioles just kicked off. Also later today, you've got the Mets and the Brewers, and then you've got the Braves and the Padres. Padres back in the playoffs. But I come to you, we were going to start with the Kings, but I come to you with breaking news from the world of the NFL. Breaking news here, Von Miller has been suspended 4 games by the NFL for violating the personal conduct policy. Just came out. Pro Football Talk has a quick article up on it. It says the NFL announced that Miller has been suspended 4 games for violating the personal conduct policy. Miller will be eligible for reinstatement on October 28th following the Bills' Week 8 game against the Seattle Seahawks. So we don't see Von. Thank goodness. He'll also miss games against the Texans, Jets, and Titans. Now, is it a big deal for Buffalo? So. Give me your take. If you're a Buffalo fan, Margot, hello. Where are you? Our resident Buffalo Bills fan. Let me know what you think. The league did not specify the reason for the suspension. However, Miller was accused of felony assault in 2023. Miller called the allegations false at the time, and the alleged victim eventually recanted. Isn't that interesting? Now, I say it's interesting for this point. Deshaun Watson, he's got this new investigation. He has a new accuser, and the accuser is going to participate, actually, in the investigation with the NFL. The NFL cannot make a victim or an accuser participate in their investigation. They are not a court. They do not have subpoena power. So in this case, the accuser did not participate. It does go on to say if the alleged victim did not cooperate with the NFL's investigation, the league would have been required to rely on police reports and related evidence harvested before the alleged victim said no assault had occurred. So, is there going to be any room for an appeal here? If the victim is saying, hey, it didn't happen, I didn't participate in your investigation, there's no formal charges as far as what this article is saying, could Von Miller possibly get out of this? I don't know. It's a question for the legal analyst. I not qualified right now to answer that. Don't know enough about the situation because it just popped up. We're brought to you again by Bennett's Westside Grill in Rockland. Get to Bennett's restaurants. You can see all of their locations. Check out their specials. Hopefully you hit up the weekend prime rib. What about the brunch? Anybody do the brunch this weekend? It's one of my favorite things to do out there. You can make reservations, check out all the menus and much more at Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Huge thanks to them. Manny hopping in early. First comment of the day. What up, Manny? Yeah. The West will be tough in the NBA, but looking forward to the Kings season. Yes, very much looking forward to the season. Media Day was yesterday. We'll get into it in a minute. The Kings have a new slogan for the season. Anybody caught that yet? Anybody caught the new slogan and the reasoning behind it? We'll talk about it here in a few minutes. Also, really quick, I'm just going to crack this off the top. Keon Ellis is going to be running with the starting five initially in training camp at the two-guard position. Mike Brown was asked about the competition at the two-guard position yesterday. We'll play his response for you. And I think the response tells you everything you need to know about whether or not Malik Monk is going to be starting this season. What stood out the most to you about the media day, Rhino? You know what? Great question, Alberto. I'll answer it in a few minutes because there were a couple things that really stuck out to me. De'Aaron Fox definitely being one of them. I talked, and Grant and I have talked about it. I've talked about it at length this offseason. Everybody that I have talked to around De'Aaron Fox has said this has been one of his best off seasons since becoming a pro. And a lot of the things I talked about, the correctables with this team, the things that could be easily corrected: basketball IQ, decision making, free throws, not even free throw percentage, getting to the free throw line. The Kings, a lot of the Kings focused on the correctables this offseason. And that came up more than a few times at media day. And that is something that sticks out strong to me, Alberto. So we'll get to it in a minute. Make sure you join us back tonight, 8 o'clock. Grant and I will be doing our Grant and Ryan show. Open forum, by the way. Anything you want to talk about, we can get to. In fact, Matt, my man, Matt, are you listening right now? So poor Matt. Matt calls up yesterday we were doing a pregame show for Monday Night Football, also kind of talking about the news broke Pete Rose passing away. And I think Matt shared a couple memories about maybe it was Dikembe Mutombo or one of the two, Pete Rose. And then he's like, can I get my takes off about bodybuilding? You know, remember, Rhino, I called your show and we talked bodybuilding for a little bit, right? And I'm like, uh-oh, Grant, show some restraint, Napes. Don't do it, Napes. And to Napes' credit, he showed some restraint. And so, Matt, if you want to get your bodybuilding takes off, you can get them off here, buddy. Just not while Jerry Reynolds is on. So Matt wanted to talk about, I think it's Mr. Olympia that's coming up here in 2 weeks. So, Matt, you've got an open line, brother. You can call up anytime when Jerry is not on, and we'll hit it, dude. So thanks for the patience. But again, Grant and I will be back 8 o'clock tonight. Would love to hear from all of you. That should be a fun show. We'll break down day one of Kings training camp, which is ongoing. So really quick, let's acknowledge, and I know we're 24 hours after the fact, Dikembe Mutombo, the big 5'5", passed away yesterday at the way too early age of 58. 58, man. Terrible. But Dikembe, you know, I don't even want to talk basketball really about Dikembe. Basketball was basketball. This guy was a man amongst men. He was a man. He was, how do I put it? He was bigger than life off the court. And it wasn't for, you know, being on TV doing things. This guy was a huge philanthropist. Dikembe did so much for Congo, for so many, the game of basketball. It's so sad to see him go. Such a distinctive voice too. You know, you could read off his accolades, Hall of Famer, Incredible defensive player. Grant said it pretty well last night. He said, yeah, you go anywhere in the lane with him, you might end up with a Spalding tattoo, which was pretty funny. That had me rolling. But Dikembe, he had a famous quote. He was on with Jim Rome one time, and I said it yesterday, but I don't think Grant got the gravity of it. Dikembe was talking about giving back, and he said, when you make it to the top floor, which he was, right? He had made it to the top floor. He's an NBA athlete, tons of money, and it wasn't about the money. It was about using your platform the right way. How can I make the world around me better? How can I make things better for the people from my hometown and the people around them and the people around them? And it builds and it builds and it builds. But Dikembe said, when you get to the top floor, you can't forget to send the elevator back down. And if that doesn't hit you, then you need to pinch yourself for something. I think that's such a great one line about how we should all try to give back, strive, live our lives. It's you didn't get there alone. And that goes back to the Kings, and it has nothing to do with Dikembe Mutombo, but their slogan for this season, climbing together. I know I teased that a few minutes ago, but Dikembe, rest in peace, my man. That finger wag, I'm got to get to the camera here. That finger wag was something else. If you saw that, you knew that ball was somewhere in the second deck usually. Like, it's kind of like foul balls in baseball when Dikembe was playing. You had to keep your head on a damn swivel. That ball might end up right in your face. So rest in peace, big man, 58 years old. Also yesterday, Pete Rose passing away. Charlie Hustle at the age of 83. Now, I have an extended take on Pete Rose that if we have time at the end of the show, I'll get to, because to me, Pete Rose is like the saddest story in baseball. Look at the way that the game of baseball is played right now. What does it need? It needs a Pete freaking Rose, right? It needs a shot in the arm, somebody that's hustling everywhere, headfirst slides. You know, Pete Rose could have been such a great advocate for the game. And I get that he advocated for the game at times privately, but he also advocated for himself. Let's be honest. Tons of autograph signings. You could get him to show up for pretty much anything, but certainly can't say there's a guy that didn't play or played the game harder than Pete Rose. He passes away at 83. I've got some audio that I want to play later about him as well. So again, Grant and I will be back 8 o'clock tonight. Would love to have you join us. Alberto hopping back in. We'll get to your comments as well. Fox looks so at peace. Incoming great season, I hope. Didn't it look like the weight was off his shoulders a little bit? And I get it. Trust me. I get it. It's the beginning of the season. These guys are going to be relaxed because right now, or I should say yesterday, is the healthiest they will be all season, right? The climb begins the next day. But yes, certainly it looked like the weight of the world franchise-wise was not on his shoulders. And we'll see. I keep saying we'll see. I need to quit saying that. But DeMar DeRozan, how's he going to fit into everything? I've been talking about the things with DeMar a lot that a lot of other people are not talking about. And many of them came up at Media Day yesterday, including from De'Aaron. So we'll get to that. I think we're going to have another breakout year from Fox. I believe it's it's the last year of his contract, and he's looking for that max deal. So Dorian, he has 2 years left on his contract. So next season will be the last year on his contract. But for all intensive purposes, this is the year. This is the year. This is the year the decision gets made on De'Aaron Fox, because if you don't see the path forward with him, or you don't think, even though he is an all-star caliber player and a top 10 point guard in the NBA, maybe top 5 when he is playing, maybe 22-23 season, top 5 point guard, absolutely. Last year, maybe not. That's debatable. But if you don't see this franchise taking the next step in the climb, like Mike Brown is talking about, with De'Aaron as part of it, then you've got to start thinking about what you're going to do, because you've got to get max value back for him. De'Aaron Fox is not a guy that you can let walk away. Period. End of story. I get the Kings were in a different position with Malik Monk, and they were confident that Malik would come back to Sacramento. But De'Aaron, not so much. And that's nothing. That's nothing that De'Aaron has said that's making me say that. I have not heard anything that says De'Aaron wants out of Sacramento. I'm strictly saying there would be a very big market for him, and you have to get rid of him at a time where there's still time left on his contract, and you can get that max value, whatever you perceive that to be, back. So, but it's going to be a big deal. I think it's going to be a big year for him, I should say, Dorian, for many reasons. I love where his head's at. I absolutely love where his head's at. Had another child this summer, so a lot of good things going on in the world for De'Aaron Fox. Grant flexed on him. Yeah, Grant flexed on him indeed. Alberto, I bet Grant let him have it. He has no nonsense kind of attitude. No, Grant was actually very polite about it. He's like, you know what? You can call back another show. It's just we've got the passing of Pete Rose, Dikembe, 2 Monday Night Football games, and nobody wants to hear anything about bodybuilding right now. And I didn't disagree with him, but it could have been one of those moments where Grant let off and he didn't. So good job, Napes. I thought that was going to, because if you don't know, new segment on the 8 o'clock shows, you've got a rant with Grant. And I'm actually a little disappointed in some of you. You get to choose Grant's rant. All you got to do is put rant ideas in the chat. Put them in the chat. We haven't been getting a lot of them. Make sure you pick that up. Got a new sponsor that's sponsoring that segment as well. But I thought the bodybuilding thing would turn into the rant. Then I messed with Napes a little bit. I'm like, Napes, you got one of those bodybuilding Speedos, dude? You got one of those? I hope not. Ooh, bad visual. Anyways, Alberto. Hopefully the NBA honors him this upcoming season, maybe with a patch on the jerseys. Yeah, they'll do something for Dikembe. Certainly. Bane, what's up, dude? Media Day Monday. Did I miss the beach volleyball segment? No, you have not, Bane. Bane, that's our number one story, dude. Beach volleyball. Is there even a beach volleyball league, Bane? There's women's volleyball. That's Sea-Dog. He's kind of our correspondent, or Corn Dog, excuse me, is our correspondent for women's volleyball. But what's up, Bane? Happy to have you here on a Jerry Reynolds Tuesday. Jerry Reynolds joining the show in about 10 minutes. Sometimes Jerry joins early. So I'll say this, Jerry Reynolds, anytime, coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Let's get to it. Before Jerry gets here, let's talk some Kings. Media Day yesterday. I'm sure many of you have watched the videos, listened to the clips. Some of you probably salivating at that picture that's on the screen right now. See, Malik's going to start. Malik's with the starters. That's the starting 5. Well, not so sure that's going to be the starting 5, but I am pretty damn sure that is supposed to be the 5 that's going to be on the court at the end of the game if everything is going good. But I led with this, and it was De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox, it looked like, again, the weight of the world was off his shoulders to a degree. And I get, just had a new shoe launch. Everything's going good, new child. But we've talked at length about DeMar DeRozan and what he brings, or what he should bring to this Kings team. And De'Aaron was really quick to talk about, hey, don't think about or don't judge DeMar's age at 35. Guy played his career high in minutes last year. 35's nothing in this league right now. And to a degree, he is absolutely right. But the theme of Media Day, by far, was DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan was the absolute theme. Everything revolved around DeMar. In fact, Mike Brown talked about a credibility, a belief that comes with DeMar DeRozan coming to your building, being on your team, both inside the facility and also with the fan base. Many of you, Mike Brown talked about it, chest pumped out. Absolutely. You've got a multiple-time all-star. You've got a guy that I think, and I'm not saying anybody on the roster the past couple of years was lagging, but doesn't it feel like there's a different level of accountability now with DeMar on this roster? So a lot of talk about him. In fact, De'Aaron was asked directly about how he thinks DeMar affects this team and where he sees DeMar fitting in and how it changes things for the team as a whole, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Here was De'Aaron yesterday.
It's definitely a blessing. I think he adds a whole nother dynamic to our team.
How would you describe that, his presence, what he brings, like the attributes, and just how you think he's going to fit in and what he can do?
Well, I think for starters is we draw the same type of defenders. So like 9 times out of 10, I'm being guarded with some type of wing. So I think we take the pressure off of each other in that aspect. But I think with him being on the court, whenever he has the ball in his hands, especially, I mean, he's one of the best ISO scorers in the league. He's been that for a long period of time. People talk about his age, him being 35 already, but I mean, he played the most minutes in the league last year. So your age doesn't matter. You're playing at a high level and you're playing a lot of minutes. However old you are, doesn't really matter. And then just his playmaking, being able to be on the court with him, him talking about if a double team's coming from this way or from this way, what he wants to happen. I definitely think his playmaking is a very underrated part of his game. And I think whenever you're actually in a gym with him and you kind of understand his thought process, you kind of see it.
How explosive can the offense be given that, Darren?
I mean, he like I said, he gives us a whole nother dynamic. I mean, he's one of the best ISO guys in the league. If you don't run a double at him, then he has a field day. And I think for us as a team, and for me as a player, he gets you open shots. He gets guys open shots. So with that, I mean, like I said, it adds a whole nother dynamic to us as a team.
100% adds a completely different dynamic to this team. And it's not just a different dynamic. I go back to the pressure word. It takes food off of guys' plates. Like De'Aaron Fox's plate last year, those big platters on the 4th of July that they bring out at that scab contest, Nathan's, where they eat dogs without Joey Chestnut. Yeah, that fake contest. Anyways, you get my point. The big platters of hot dogs. De'Aaron now has a couple hot dogs on his plate, and exactly how it should be, right? Because DeMar now commands attention. One of the biggest problems the Kings had last year was the fact that they were the easiest team in the league to guard. You didn't have to expect what they were doing on the offensive end of the ball. Now with DeMar DeRozan on the floor, they're a 3-tier threat from behind the three-point line, the mid-range, and then Domas under the hoop. So a lot of what De'Aaron said rang very true and spot on. We're going to get to more from De'Aaron here in just a couple of minutes, but we know what Tuesdays are around here. I talk about it. I know that LeBron wants Taco Tuesday. Pretty funny how LeBron says it, by the way. I'll give him that. Tuesdays, you get a day off from basket or from football, right? But most importantly, Tuesdays are our favorite day of the week because they are Jerry Reynolds Tuesdays. The man, the legend. Jerry, how you doing today, buddy?
Yeah, pretty good. This October heat, though, we gotta move on to fall here pretty soon, don't we? This is get a little depressing.
I know. Can you talk to somebody about that, Jerry?
Yeah, I've got a real insight into to Mother Nature, so.
Very good, very good. Well, hey, your Chiefs, Jerry, they just keep on rolling.
Yeah, I mean, as much a fan as I am of not just the Chiefs but the NFL, I enjoy it. But boy, injuries and the Chiefs have been lucky. I'll be the first to admit it. They could be 0-4.
Sure.
And they've been very fortunate to win each game, but winning is still the deal. And I think with Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes, I mean, they've got certainly an elite head coach and an elite quarterback, and that gives you a little better chance than most, I think. And but I don't know where they go. And it's 1 week it looks like Buffalo Bills are the best team in the league, and then the next week they look get embarrassed, and the Ravens look like they're overmatched, and then all of a sudden they look like a super team. So that's what I say. If I was a Niners fan, and I do like the Niners, is that, hey, way too early to get worried. I mean, I'm convinced with the NFL, maybe the key is, of course, being reasonably healthy going into the playoffs, and it's your backups, with the exception of your stars. Whoever's got the best second string lineman, offensively and defensively.
It's a great point.
It just seems like, because every sport has injuries, but football, I mean, it's not surprising. You watch it. I'm amazed that every player that plays isn't hurt every game.
Oh yeah, it's the Dallas game, Jerry, on Thursday night. The backup lineman, the backup tackle, he must have had like 5 holding calls. He was getting ran through the entire game. It makes a huge difference.
Huge difference, I mean, certainly like, for instance, I love watching the Niners. I mean, their offensive line, obviously, without McCaffrey, and they still can run the ball every bit as good, because the line opens up so many great holes. And I mean, they certainly miss McCaffrey for all the other stuff he does. But but still, anyway, yeah. But one of the best things about the NFL is when it's going good, that means basketball's around the corner. So
that's damn right. I was going to say, if it wasn't basketball season right here, you could go moonlight for the Niners at tailback. You could probably get 60, 70 yards, couple touchdowns.
I'll tell you what, they got some pretty good holes there, but I'd be sliding before I got to the line.
Manny is happy that you are feeling better. Sounds like the cold cleared up, so that's a good thing, Jared.
Yeah, well, thanks, Manny. Yeah, it seems like every summer I get a head cold, like kind of an car air conditioning cold, I call them. I mean, hey, when you're going to have something, just hope it's not worse than a cold.
Yep. Amen. Amen. Well, Jerry, we are here. Media day yesterday. Training camp kicked off today. Before we talk Kings, Dikembe Mutombo, Jerry, 58 years old.
58 years old. So sad, and marvelous player, and just a great philanthropist and human rights activist. I mean, just of course, yeah, he was special. Boy, you just see that young guys passing away. I just think of his. I think he had brain tumor, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And a good friend, former coach of the Kings, Paul Westphal, had that, and of course he was 71, but I mean, he was in great shape, and boy, within 6 months. He had passed, just let's it's something's going to get you. You just enjoy.
Yeah.
Makes you think you've got to enjoy your time and do the best with your time that you can.
Yeah, it's very well said. I think you hit on the most important thing. He was an amazing basketball player, but he did so much off the court. I mean, when I think about ambassadors for the game, he's right near the top of the list, Jer.
Yeah, he is and was. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, really probably most of the important things of his life happened after his career, and certainly, like I say, we remember what an outstanding career he had, and and his.
Except his fingers like this long.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where he created his own little league rule. I always say that's kind of a sign of greatness and something, when the league has to put a rule in just because of something a player does.
Yeah, that is, when you get your own rule, you have officially made it into that league for good. So the Kings, Jerry, unfortunately kick off training camp with a couple of injuries. We know about Kevin Huerter, who's going to be reevaluated. He actually hits the 6-month mark with his shoulder surgery October 3rd. He's reevaluated later this month. Jordan McLaughlin is dealing with an ankle injury. He'll be reevaluated in a couple weeks. but most importantly, Trey Lyles. He's out right now again. Jerry, that's a position the Kings cannot afford to be thin at.
No, and Trey's missed so much time last year. It's really they really just need him, as you say. I mean, obviously, I thought McLaughlin, would be very important until Herter gets available and Carter.
Yeah.
And now that he's going to be out. Now, it does during preseason. I think if you want to look for positives, which I'm doing, is it may give the coaches a good chance to look at Orlando Robinson to see if he might be part of the solution. Because without Lyles, obviously it's a position of need and depth, size. So, just hoping that maybe he could prove, with some extended minutes that you'd think he might get, that he might be a guy they could depend on, be part of the rotation. And I think Colby Jones is it's going to be an important time for him.
Interesting.
I don't know that he's played particularly well last year or even summer league, but I think it's time to find out if he's a guy they can count on. And here again, with the injuries, you'd think he'd be getting some pretty good opportunities.
Yeah. What do you think is the plan right now? Let's say Orlando kind of works out, but doesn't blow the coaches away. How are you patching that hole right now at the forward position?
Well, I think, it's going to mean that Keegan Murray's going to be playing an awful lot of 4, which I think he should anyway with DeRozan available. So, and that just may mean they go small, even smaller at times. But DeRozan has guarded some 4s, which I don't know what that does to you.
A little small.
Very small. I think that's the real concern. It's just if this team has something, an area that you just know needs some extra help, and that's in the size. They might even try playing Domas at some 4 and with Lynn. I wouldn't be scared to do that in 8-10 minute spots. But that's probably not the answer for any longer than that.
Yeah, no, it is a good point. Domas, he's shifty on his feet, but that might be a big ask. But, this is where Monty McNair has the flexibility. Jerry, do you monitor other teams, what they're doing at training camp, anybody that they may release and look to bring somebody in if this Trey Lyles thing extends a little bit longer?
Oh, I think you do, and I don't, you don't expect to get a star that way, but there are players who on certain teams have a lot of depth at one position. They may not be needed, but for the Kings, it might work out. I definitely think that they'll be following rosters very closely, and certainly you can still trade. Ask New York and Minnesota. So if I were Monty, I'd certainly be still researching that possibility. Maybe some deals that they looked at in the past and didn't happen. You can always go back and maybe sniff around those again.
Certainly. And you know what? Let's go there since you brought it up. The huge trade, most notably Randall heading to Minnesota, Towns heading to New York. Jerry, break it down for me. What do you think of the trade?
Well, normally, to me, the way you look at it is like, who got the best player?
Yeah.
Well, New York got the best player in talent in Towns, but and I think it's a good move for him. I think it makes them better. The weaknesses with Town, in my opinion, he's basically kind of a soft player, and really could not defend out on the wing. But for the Knicks, he won't have to defend out on the wing. He'll be playing center, kind of off and offensively spread the floor. But the other part is, even though he's a little on the soft side, Thibodeau knows him and knows that. But the Knicks, the rest of the guys are just nails. And I think they can cover for him, and it'll help him. But the other side is I like Minnesota's too.
Yeah.
They really are at the stage, I think, where they realize to beat Dallas, they can't play Gobert that much. And so I think Nas Reed and Randall and Jaden McDaniels, I can see that, going small, but not really small.
Yeah.
And athletic. They could do that more. Not that Gobert won't play a lot, but I just think in a lot of situations they're thinking we can't play Gobert down the stretch against Irvings and Doncic's and Gilgeous Alexanders because he can't step out and cover them on screen rolls.
Right. Right.
And at least he has efficiently so far. So I think that, and then DiVincenzo will be a nice third guard for him. I mean, I thought he played very well in New York. Obviously,
Great,
not so well here or in Golden State, but I think he's healthy and he's got his confidence. So I think he'll help him. And then maybe the most important part, by moving Towns, that means Anthony Edwards is the guy.
Bingo.
And I think they just said sooner we get to that, the better off we're going to be.
So Grant and I have kicked this around. Did the West get better with this trade, Jerry?
I don't know if it did, but I don't think it got worse. I mean, I just think Minnesota's really good differently. I mean, I don't know that they're going to be harder for the Kings to beat necessarily, but I think they're thinking, as they should, we want to win the West. How do we do it? We know we've got to deal with Dallas, the Dallas and
Sure.
Oklahoma City. They're great guards in this high screen roll stuff. So I think that's how they're thinking, and I think it's very smart, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you. Looking at Minnesota, and even coming off the year they had last year, ownership said, we're going to reevaluate this thing. And Kings fans remember the Kings traded Jason Williams for Mike Bibby when they were on their way up. You've got to tweak things. But to me, the Timberwolves played so much better with Nas Reed rather than Karl Anthony Towns, because I think it messed up the spacing. And if you got Anthony Edwards, you got to play to his strengths. And I feel like, as you said, this is exactly what that does.
Yeah, with Nas, I mean, he can really shoot out on the perimeter. And so you got a big that can guard centers and is extremely lively, but can stretch the floor. Now, Randall is not nearly as good as a deep shooter, but he can shoot threes. But he's a very good post player.
Yes.
And so, I mean, you do a lot of I can see where they can do a lot of high-low action, things like that. And then maybe the most important part is Randall's good enough shooter away from the basket that you got to play him, and that opens up the basket for Edwards.
Bingo.
And I think anytime you can get Anthony Edwards in one-on-one matchups with space, I think you like that if you're the Coach Finch.
He's a freak. Have you ever seen athletic plays like you've seen from him in the last couple of years in your career?
You to me, you almost have to go back to Dominique Wilkins.
Wow.
Called him the human highlight film. And I mean, Edwards is kind of like that. He's a little smaller version. And I would tend to compare him more to that type player than Jordan. He's not nearly the complete player that Michael was, even at that age. But, and maybe Vince Carter's another one. I mean, obviously, Kings fans remember Vince at the end of his career, but the first 6-7 years of his career, he was about as dynamic and explosive as you'd ever want to see.
Oh, yeah. Anybody that can hang from the rim with their elbow, that's pretty explosive in my book.
That's pretty explosive, isn't it? Yeah.
Towns, really quick, going back to him, maybe, Jerry, do you think that New York style of basketball, I know you mentioned it partially, maybe rubs off on him? Is this his chance to maybe get that edge?
I think it is. I mean, and if it was anybody but Coach Thibodeau, I'd have some concerns, but I mean, he knows him. He's coached him, you know, and I mean, he knows his talents, but he also knows the flaws. And I think he knows his roster. And so if I were Boston, I'd be sucking a little air right now thinking, oops, I mean, certainly, Indiana fully healthy.
Yeah. Great point.
Are good contenders. And then of course, Philly, you never know, because Embiid, you could just talent-wise, they're a concern. But I think the Knicks are a legitimate threat to Boston in the East.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I've got to see it with Paul George in the playoffs in Philly. I got to see Paul be able to make it through a season, but the East is going to be a monster. And then Miami, it seems like you can never count them out, Jerry, just because they're coached so well.
Yeah, they're coached so well, and I think maybe Pat Riley has gotten Jimmy Butler's attention, and I think we'll see Jimmy, be at his best a little more often during the regular season. He's going to be Jimmy sometimes, but then the playoffs, he is playoff Jimmy, and so I mean he and Adebayo, I mean they'll be a tough out. I don't know that they shouldn't be a contender. But the fact that, it's Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler, and you kind of know they will be.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at a couple of teams overall, and we'll get back to the Kings here in a second, there's a team in each conference that I look to, and I don't know whether you blow it up or if you double down. So I'm going to ask you, we'll start with Phoenix, Jerry. Is this a situation where you blow it up, or do you think you double down and you keep running with what they have?
I think this is a 1-year deal right now.
Okay.
I think this if it doesn't go well, and I certainly hope it doesn't.
Yeah,
but I mean, if it doesn't, I think they will. I mean, I think they should. Because it's not going to get better. I mean, Durant's not going to get younger.
No.
I mean, and probably one of those teams. If it were me, I'd almost try to keep Booker and just kind of reduce stuff. But I agree with you. I mean, I think this is a kind of a 1-year window for them, so to speak.
Yeah, we talked about Tyus Jones. I think that's the key, because you were wasting Devin Booker's talents if you're asking him to be a distributor, Jerry.
Yeah, I think that was I think it's a great pickup. I think it's exactly what they needed. Booker did a commendable job, but it took him away from being at his best position, which is off guard. To
exactly.
Me, Book is I've said many times, he's kind of like a JV Kobe.
Yes.
A smaller version. I mean, I don't mean that derisively. I mean, he's an elite player, but he's not Kobe. He's a smaller version. But I think with Tyus, that gives him a chance to be more Kobe. And then I think if which is what they should do, in my opinion, is bring Bradley Beal off the bench. He's not the same player he once was, and is not gonna be. And so, as an off the bench guy, maybe he can stay healthy, and maybe he can provide a spark that way. And so I think they got better. I do, but I think it's a 1-year. I agree with you. I think it's a 1-year window. That window's getting ready to slide back.
It's getting close.
Getting close.
That's an expensive sixth man, by the way, Bradley Beal. Holy crap.
Well, yeah, that's one of those deals you said, that was a bad trade day one.
Terrible.
I just was wondering, like the owner and them, did you watch him play?
Right. And we go from one bad trade to a worse trade. The other team, is this a 1-year deal for Milwaukee, Jerry?
I would say so too. I mean, I think obviously they're really good as long as Giannis is healthy. I mean, that's kind of where it is. They really haven't improved talent-wise much, and it's so much on him. Chris Middleton, fighting injuries, and so is he going to be able to give you 70 games and be the Middleton of old? I mean, he showed you. Maybe he can, but overall, yeah, I think this is kind of a 1-year deal there too, because they're going to have to try to convince Giannis, okay, we'll try to redo this thing and make it one more run with you. And I think that's the way I'd approach it. You're not gonna lose him if you can help it.
Yeah. Well, that they are certainly on Boston's Christmas cards list.
Oh boy, are they ever?
My goodness.
We talked about this. Both of us had a good laugh at the time. It's like,
yes.
Did Milwaukee? Did you think they would have traded Drew Holiday to Portland if they knew he was going to be moved to Boston? Of course not. I mean,
No
and I mean,
chance.
and Lillard. I mean, this is kind of the year, much like he's a lot better than Bradley Beal, but it's kind of a 1 year thing there too. If they can't do it, they're probably try to move him to a contender for pieces. I would think.
Yeah, you would have to, I think, as well. Gammon with a question. I assume he is directing this towards the Kings. Jerry, what is the team's Achilles heel? Is pouring in points the best masking agent for this?
Great question, and I do think pouring in points that's the answer. I mean, for this version of the Kings, with the size limitations and maybe athletic limitations in the wing and length kind of thing, they got to go score the ball. Now, I think they can. I think DeRozan, if you can go put up 120 every night, and I think they can, then they're still going to win.
Yeah.
It, like I say, we said it's still a scoreboard, and the one that has the biggest number on it wins. But that's what they'll have to do and I think defensively, I think they'll be okay for being a small team. So, but the length and depth, they need another big body they can count on, and whether Trey Lyles could step his game up some. Could Orlando Robinson give them something?
Yeah, that's the name. That's the name that keeps coming up.
Yeah, and then maybe it's Keegan who will play more at 4 and will prove to be. We've seen signs of it, and I don't want to. The guy's done everything you could ask for a young player.
Yeah,
but I mean, with his defensive ability and all, but I think he can protect the rim and help Domas a little bit too as he's getting bigger and stronger and wiser. But I still think that the question is a good one, and I think it will come down to the Kings. They've really got to be good offensively.
I'm going to agree with you, but I'm going to add something to it. Basketball IQ. I thought basketball IQ last year was a huge Achilles heel for the team. They were in different positions, Jerry, where I get they were behind, so you had to shoot quick threes, try to make up. But sometimes I don't feel like this team thinks a step ahead. This team doesn't think about, oh, wait, we have an advantage here. How can we create mismatches just like a lot of other teams do? And a prime example is the play-in game against the Warriors. The Kings were thinking a step ahead with the switches so they could get the switch they wanted with Draymond and Fox. And so if the basketball IQ and the decision-making changes, and I don't see how it doesn't with a guy like DeMar DeRozan on the floor and a little bit less of a workload with De'Aaron Fox initiating rather than him and just Sabonis alone doing it, I think that's going to be a huge help to this team.
Oh, I do too. That's a great point. I mean, I think with DeMar, he is a very smart player, and I mean, he knows who he is. I mean, the old Kevin Durant statement, you know who I am. Well,
yeah.
I mean, with DeMar, every team in the league knows his strengths, but they still have tough time guarding him. And so it'll be a matter, I think Coach Brown and his staff will just have to try to, a key will be how can we make sure that DeRozan is really getting the ball in his perfect spots.
Right.
And I think they're very fortunate, this team is, to have a guy like Sabonis, because they're probably in the better guy in the league to do that.
Absolutely.
And I've said many times, and I believe this, I think Sabonis will be better this year, but will score less.
Yep.
Because he's the ultimate unselfish guy, and I could see him probably averaging 15 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists, or 11. That his actually value would be more, but he would score less, and I think that that could be a real key to the success.
I will be happy as a clam if his rebounds go up, especially his offensive rebounds. And I know he's a great rebounder already, but that means he's closer to the hoop, right, Jerry?
Yeah.
And also with DeMar, to your point, if you get him to his right spots, that's inevitably going to make teams have to lean over defensively, possibly double his way. And what's that do? That gets Keegan Murray, that gets Kevin Herter to spot up shots in their spots that they like, and that's their specialty.
Yeah, I do think with both DeMar and De'Aaron, they're going to draw some doubles, and that's going to really give I think Keegan Murray some another clean look or two every game.
Yep, absolutely.
And you know, where he can get his points. I don't know that he'll score more because I don't know that he'll have the opportunities like he has, but I think he can score about the same on less shots and be more productive, and that's always the key. And I think the last thing I'd like to see is De'Aaron maybe to, even though he can shoot the three well enough, turn a few of them down.
Yes.
You know, if they're not spot shots and where they're, really just giving you the shot, I mean, I think he needs to attack the basket more. That's where he's special. And, if he shoots 4 to 5 3-pointers a game, I think because he's going to draw some 3-point attempts inside and then draw a lot of attention from the defense. So little things here, but but I thought the last question hit it though. I mean, they gotta find a way to score the ball consistently every night.
Bingo. Love it. Yes, John. I think that's what Jerry's saying. We'll check those. So, Jerry, if you score more points more often, that's how you win?
Over the years, I have found few exceptions to that rule. And there's a lot of different ways to get there. I mean, it's like I always say, people say, well, defense wins. Well, of course it doesn't. It gives you a better chance to win. Offense always wins because that's the most points.
Yeah.
But, but the old bad boy Pistons, what they did, they were great defensively. So they only had to score 90 points to win.
That's right.
But they still had more points than the other team. And so their offense was better than the other team. So, sometimes, you don't make it more complicated than it really is.
Take that, analytics people. So let's go through training camp really quick. Walk everybody through. What is the goal of training camp? How do you roll this thing out? First day, first week? What are the guys up to as we sit today, Jerry?
Yeah, a lot of it's just building up conditioning, stamina, a lot of drill work, maybe putting in a little bit of the offense, just bits and pieces, a few things, try to get a few things in within a couple of days so you can scrimmage, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
A few rules on defense. And then, the first few days, a lot of it's just stamina work, which, guys have been playing basketball, but playing basketball on your own time and shooting around and all, it's not the same as kind of game-like conditions. So that'll be really important. But, you hope that they'll have a few things in, and nowadays you play a preseason game so quick.
Yeah,
so you need to have a few things offensively and defensively in your mind within a few days, which in the old days, we didn't worry about that for a week, really.
Very good point. Jerry, speaking of the preseason games, certainly football and basketball, they're two different sports, and the way you play your starters is different. How do you think Micah Brown should approach the preseason with the core of this team in their minutes?
I do think that I would like to see him play what he thinks his starters and key guys are quite a bit. I mean, not like 35 minutes, but make sure they're getting on the floor together. Your starting unit, maybe your key guys, make sure Monk is getting, his time and all that. And, where they play more than 10 or 15, 20 minutes, I would say that's fine, but make sure it's with the guys they're going to be playing with.
Yeah.
So you're building some camaraderie, just simply comfort zone with players, especially when you're adding a star type to your lineup.
Yep, and a big point of discussion yesterday at Media Day was the two-guard position. Keon Ellis is going to start with the starting five initially in training camp. Mike Brown had an interesting answer about that competition, And he really laid out the Manu Ginobili example when it came to Malik Monk. You and I have talked heavily about what the Kings should do it too. We're still together. Keon Ellis, I think, is the right fit. Jerry, you think that makes a role for Kevin possibly moving into a 3 position?
I do. I mean, I think they'll need him to play. I think some backup 2-3. Backup position. He's big enough. Strength wise, it's a concern certainly, but I think they're going to be a small team anyway. But I think behind DeRozan, I mean, you're keeping, if you play behind DeMar, I mean, even 10 minutes a game, you're keeping firepower on the floor. And that's what you want to do. So yeah, I can see. I'm hopeful that Kevin, can adapt to that role, which he's had in Atlanta. He was very good in that role, by the way. And so it's not anything particularly new to him. It's just something a little new here. And but yeah, he's going to have to be versatile, and he has been. So there again, it's just the only negative is he's a little small for exactly what you'd want there. But they're small pretty much everywhere else. So
exactly.
And I think with Malik, I think that's, it's a great analogy there with Manu Ginobili. Now, having said that, I don't believe Malik's as good as Manu Ginobili. On that note, I really, Manu played 34, 35 minutes. He just didn't start. I would hope that Malik starts getting more minutes instead of averaging, they say 26. I think he ought to get 30 minutes a game. He is one of your 5 best players. And
he is.
So that would be my only suggestion to Coach Brown, if he wanted one, is find a way to get him on the floor more, since he is one of your best players.
I don't think there's any doubt that they took a picture yesterday, and we started the show talking about it because it's been making the rounds on social media. The projected starting 4 plus Malik, but I think that's the 5. It's DeMar, De'Aaron, Keegan, Malik, and Domas that you want ending the game. Ideally, that's the 5 on the floor.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's going to end a lot of games. And maybe some games you might even go really small and just have, just Domas is the only size at all. And just
interesting. Yeah.
Now you can't do that a lot of minutes, but in special circumstances, you sure could, when you want to break a defense down. I mean, I think Coach Brown has a lot of options, which is what any coach would like to have. I mean, certainly in some years past, there were no options. It's just, trot whoever could fill a uniform out there and hope. But
he's got better options now for sure. But yeah, there were some lean years. You know that for sure, coaching sometimes.
Oh boy. Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think with this team, and I think why I think the window is open for several years here. Because, there's no old players other than DeMar, and he should have 2 years. So you have that. And then, you should have stability in the front office and your coaching staff. And this is one of the rare times where ownership has a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I mean, certainly the Maloofs, when they bought the team originally, did, and they spent it, and they had really good teams, and they, had good teams, and they spent the money until they didn't have any money, and then then things did go well. Funny about that in sports.
Yeah, that is funny how that works. Indeed. Really quick, Kevin Huerter does actually look like he's gotten a little bit bigger size-wise. He joked about it yesterday because he's like, well, when you injure your shoulder, you're doing a lot of shoulder work. So maybe that'll fit him well if he gets some time at the 3. Jerry, always a pleasure. Did you get your chicken and dumplings this week?
I didn't. It's been
okay.
I'm gonna, definitely. Of course, I'm kind of planning on maybe heading up to Tahoe to get away from this weather. So
I hear that.
Get me and Mrs. Reynolds later, maybe early next week. But chicken and dumplings. I'm thinking about them.
Love it. Love it. We'll have a safe drive. If you have any room in your trunk, let me know.
All
I'll just
right.
jump in. But no, always a pleasure. We'll catch up next week. Talk about more training camp and news. And Jerry, you're the best. Thank you so much, buddy.
Well, thanks. Enjoy it with all you guys. And yeah, basketball season's around the corner. Man, what a happy time.
It's a happy time. We are in the month when the season starts. Can't get much better than that. That is Jerry. Have a great one, buddy.
See ya.
All right. Jerry Reynolds joining us every Tuesday. Great conversation. Gammon, I saw some of your questions. They just weren't quite fitting into the conversation. I will save them and put them in the locker for when some of those topics come up. Anything Jerry said, perk your ears. Let me know anything that you heard that we talked about. The Minnesota trade, really interesting. I'm not ready to say the West is better either. I told Grant if you held my feet to the fire, that's the way I would lean. But I do think when it relates to the Kings, this helps the Kings with Julius Randle. And the reason it helps the Kings is because the Kings are smaller. They're going to be a little quicker. You got to beat them with quickness at times. And Randall's not the most agile guy. I think it's a little bit more, and he's more athletic than Gobert, as Jerry pointed out. But I think there's some mismatches the Kings can target there. It's the size versus speed. Now, certainly Minnesota on the other end of the court can target the Kings with the lack of size, but the Kings have played the Timberwolves pretty well. And Towns, again, going back to him, he just did not fit into what they wanted to do to make it to that next level. In fact, I would argue he almost was holding them back in this sense. His style just did not mesh with how that team played their best basketball. In fact, you would have to go outside of that style at times to get Cat involved. And it doesn't. I know the NBA right now, the three-pointer is all the jazz, but you see a lot of teams going back to these double bigs. And for a guy as big as Cat, you've got to be able to play inside too. And that's something Cat struggled at many times. That's why he was always out on the perimeter. So a good trade, I think, for everybody involved. DiVincenzo, that's the wild card there, isn't it? Because like Jerry said, and we've talked about it a little bit before this, he's had some good stops. New York, great stop. Villanova connection. But Sacramento, not so great. Golden State, not so great. What I'm getting at is the fit matters. So will Minnesota be a good fit for him? Overall, it will be very interesting and a lot of good storylines to follow when it comes to the Kings. We still got a lot. We got about 30 minutes of show left here. We'll get to Pete Rose. Also, we've got more sound from Media Day. Want to talk some more Kings with you guys. We'll get back to the comments as well. But first, got to remind you about Bennett's West Side Grill in Rockland. Not their only location. 3 locations in all. Go to bennettsrestaurants.com. You can check out all of their great menus. They have prime cuts of seafood, steak, incredible burgers, sandwiches. Their steak Cobb salad, incredible. One of my favorite items on there. Also, brunch. This is brunch season. It's perfect brunch season. They've got TVs everywhere if you want to eat inside, and also beautiful patios. If it's one of those nice days where it's not too hot, you can get 2 entrees and a bottle of champagne for under $50. Don't forget about happy hour Monday through Friday, 2 to 6. There's sips and taste. Bennett's has been one of the original sponsors on the Kings Court, and a huge thanks to them for being a sponsor. And go show them some love. And let me know, have any of you been to all 3 Bennett's? Have you been to all 3 Bennett's yet? Hit me up. I know some of you have been to a couple. We're going to be doing an event at Bennett's sometime this season when Grant's back in town from South Florida. We are going to get together. We'll do our shows. We'll do it for a Kings game. We'll do our shows from Bennett's, and then we'll have a watch party. We'll make sure it's a road game. So that way, if you go to the games or you have season tickets, you can be included as well. So stay tuned for more information on that. Great conversation with Jerry. Really enjoyed that. We are incredibly lucky to have Jerry here every Tuesday. Awesome stuff. We didn't have him last week because I had something going on, but as basketball gets closer and closer, in fact, we're here. We will continue to be talking with him and talking about media today. We heard from De'Aaron talking about DeMar and how that kind of opens things up for the team and how it changes things to a degree. A lot of you have said it feels like the pressure is a little bit off De'Aaron, and I don't disagree with that, but I've been saying, and I said it at the top of the show, this has been one of the best summers that De'Aaron Fox has had that I can remember in a long time, and that's coming from people close to De'Aaron, around the team, and as I said at the top of the show, there were a lot of controllables that the Kings let get out of control last year. And they're really hyper-focused on bringing the balance back, on making sure that they're taking care of the things that are up to them. And De'Aaron addressed this about his game offensively. There was a lot of criticism last year about De'Aaron. Now his three-point percentage was up. You can't argue that, but at what cost to the team? Because that extra point you get from behind the arc, does it mean more than what you get for the team if you're getting inside and getting fouled and getting to the free throw line? Yeah, I know you can get a three-point play, but you can get teams in foul trouble. You can get guys in foul trouble. You can get into the penalty early, right? And also, if you're shooting free throws, you're setting your defense, something that the Kings many times in the second half of the season, when they were able to set their defense, they were playing great defense. But when the Kings weren't getting to the free throw line and not setting their defense, because a lot of times when they weren't getting to the free throw line, the shots were not following as well. So it's a lot of transition. And one place where the Kings are bad is transition defense, not one of their strengths. They're great in transition offensively, but defensively not so good. So De'Aaron talked about his game yesterday and what he worked on in the offseason. Here's Foxy. Oh, I guess our sound drop doesn't want to work. Let's try this again. Here is De'Aaron for you.
I mean, obviously continue to be a better shooter. I think I shot 84 from the free throw line after All-Star break. So wanting to be a more consistent free throw shooter as well. Obviously, I think we are middle of the pack as a free throw team. Last year we win 51, 52 games, and now you're not looking at the playoffs on that from the outside looking in. So in that aspect, and then like I said, just having DeMar on this team gives us and gives me a little bit. I wouldn't say like more freedom, but he'll get guys open shots. So I shot 39% from catch and shoot last year, but I was only shooting like 2 a game. So hopefully being able to get easier looks ups that percentage and don't have to shoot as many off the dribble threes, and then just being able to get my mid-range and my finishing to where it was before last year. And I think just the finishing, I mean, I had an ankle injury early in the season, so I think that kind of played a little bit into it, but just trying to be able to be a 3-level scorer, an elite 3-level scorer.
So remember last year, I made a huge deal about this, a huge deal. Free throws were down significantly. Free throw attempts were down 16+% from 22-23. Made free throws down 20+% from 22-23. That was a lot of points the Kings left out there. So free throws, I've said it all off season, have been a point of emphasis for De'Aaron, and I hope that translates both to getting to the line and also converting from the free throw line. A big question, too, this year had to do with Kevin Herter. I've got a bite from him that I want you to hear. Kevin was talking about some of the difficulties he's experienced over the last season. Really, the off seasons haven't been a problem, but the in season has been a problem. It's not the easiest thing in the world to wonder, am I going to be here tomorrow? Having constant trade talks, having talk about your game. And it wasn't exactly fair to put it all on Kevin, because his looks changed. Now, I get, if you got an open three, you got to knock down the three. That's on Kevin. He is a three-point shooter. But when you're getting different looks because teams are guarding you differently, think about how teams guarded Domas last year. They sagged off of him, which takes away a lot of the same looks off the move that Kevin was getting. One thing Kevin is great at is the spot-up three. Jerry and I talked about that with both Kevin and Keegan. Here's Kevin on what he thinks DeMar can do to help him improve offensively this year.
It does. Obviously, DeMar is a special offensive player, has been since he's been in the NBA. Fortunately, I've had to play against him for 6 years now. So it'll be interesting to see how teams guard us. I don't know if I know the answer to that yet. We'll figure that out. But there's a lot of answers teams are going to have for us on any given night, and whether let Fox go one-on-one or DeMar go one-on-one or let Domas go one-on-one, it's a lot of ways we pick your poison. And so I'm looking forward to more catch and shoot opportunities. I feel like my time in SAG, a lot of it has been off the move and really working for a lot of the shots that I'm getting, with obviously the attention that Domas and Fox have always gotten. But there's some of those easier looks to catch and shoot, get more in transition, being in the right spot, and just getting off to play off those guys.
Should make a difference from Kevin. And like I said, he is bulked up a little bit, which will definitely help out when it comes to possibly playing the three position and playing a little bit outside of that two spot that Kevin so commonly plays. But also remember, Kevin's pretty long. He's pretty long, and his defense is not terrible. He just could not do the same things that Keon Ellis can do, which enabled De'Aaron Fox to get freed up more defensively. And you saw the steals go through the roof. And offensively now, I fast forward to this year, that's the hope with DeMar DeRozan. That if DeMar DeRozan, because the free throws, we know, great at him. Getting the mid-range, getting his spots, great. But the passing, I talked about it last week. The passing is what's going to change the formula. And by default, that is also going to free De'Aaron up to do the things he is best at without the full attention of the defense on him. So all good things there. Mike Brown was asked yesterday also a few questions. He's talking about the theme of this year. I told you guys that it's climbing together. You might ask why that is. They brought in a mountaineer. Check this out. To do a speech. He had climbed the 5 most dangerous and highest mountains in the world. And he talked to the team. He talked about how climbing is not just an individual sport. It is actually a team sport from an expedition standpoint. And he laid out a bunch of things that really caught on with Mike, that Mike was able to pull from and relate to basketball. Here's Coach Brown on climbing together.
The group, you need teammates that are extremely focused on the daily process, because if you start thinking about reaching the summit, it's going to take your mind away from something in front of you, which obviously is going to cause tragedy. And so paying attention to the process, the daily process, the daily details, while sacrificing and being a loyal teammate and embracing your role, all that stuff is huge within a mountain climbing team or an expedition group. And at the end of the day, obviously reaching the summit is like a championship, and you're not always going to reach the summit, and just because you didn't reach the summit, that doesn't mean that it's a failure. You know, you got to get back on your horse and keep trying to do it again and again and again. And another parallel is not the whole team will reach the summit. Only one or two guys will. And that's the equivalent of, again, I've been to 6 finals and been a part of 4 championships. And at the end of the day, you see Steph getting an MVP trophy, you see Tim getting an MVP trophy, you see KD, wherever it is, and they get a lot of recognition for the MVP Finals trophy. But it was the whole team that did their role to help get us there. And so, you know, having him come in and tell his story was fantastic. It was a great night. And so, you know, our thing right here is it's climbing together. You know, as you climb higher from your summer work to the preseason, to the regular season, to the playoffs, as you climb higher, the struggle gets harder. And you got to be passionate about with what you do or with what's in front of you. And if you are, it's going to get you through the dog days, because there are going to be some dog days. So, you know, our theme this year is climbing together. And if we hit any adversity at all, again, as part of our life, we get to go home and see our wives and kids and loved ones. But for him, especially climbing this mountain right here, Annapurna, that could be death. That's real adversity. So if we hit adversity this year, I'm going to remind our guys, Annapurna. We're not on Annapurna. We're not climbing Annapurna. Let's enjoy what we do and figure it out.
How much of that do you has
Like the mindset, like the approach. Coach Brown, I'm gonna hit you with some bites here, but it's important if you guys did not catch media day. Coach Brown continued yesterday talking about the team and DeMar.
But, you know, obviously you want everybody healthy, but, you know, that's
And the injuries.
That's part of it. And, you know, you look back, even last year when we had the injuries and it stunk and I hated it. But at the end of the day, you know, other guys got an opportunity to step up and get some invaluable playing experience that they wouldn't have gotten if guys were healthy. And so for us, it's the same thing. It's next man up. And the next guy has to step up, and we got to hold down the fort until other guys get back. But, you know, injuries are part of the game. But, again, it's not something that you wish upon anybody.
Heck yeah, Patrick. Welcome in, buddy. So Jerry and I covered what the Kings may do. I think Orlando Robinson will get some extended looks like we talked about. But, again, preseason, time for guys to step up, time to get that rotation to start forming. That didn't make sense. Sorry. You've got to get a better rotation than Mike had last year. And I'm not talking player-wise. I'm talking consistency. That does need to be a little bit better. I did tell you that Keon Ellis is getting the looks right now at the 2 guard with the starting 5. Coach Brown addressed that as well. The I guess, open competition, because competition is good. I have no problem with that. And Malik's desires to start for this team.
The first thing I will say is this. I want guys on my team that not only want to start, but want to be the best. You know, and you know, again, that's going back to Ed's speech yesterday. You know, you want everybody on your team to want to have a commitment to being their best. And you want everybody to want to be at the highest level in that group. But obviously not everybody can get there. So I'm excited that Malik wants to start. I know his teammates are excited that he's that type of competitor. But at the end of the day, I also know that Malik is about the team, and he wouldn't do anything to disappoint his teammates, especially, you know, his best friends on the team. He doesn't want to bring them down, and just as importantly, he doesn't want to bring down the city of Sacramento. So I know he'll embrace whatever role we throw at him while continuing to compete, push whoever is in front of him or the side of him or behind him while we're trying to get better as a group. But I've said this before. I was fortunate, blessed, lucky, however you want to call it, to coach.
So I'm not going to hit you with another 2 minutes of that, but basically what Mike was talking about was the Manu Ginobili example that Jerry and I covered. how Manu was a top player in the league, could have started for many teams, yet he came off the bench. He talked about Bowen being in front of him, even though Bowen played 6 minutes or only averaged 6 points a game, etc. Sometimes teams need that spark plug. So certainly something to pay attention to in training camp. But the way that I see it, and I've seen it this way since the offseason, is as we sit today, I don't have a change of opinion. This is Keon Ellis's job to lose. I truly believe Keon Ellis is the best fit to be with that starting five for many different reasons. I think in some ways you are wasting Malik's talents and you're leaving points on the floor by having Malik in the starting five. Now, last season, different case. The Kings were not good enough to spread their talent out, even though they did. And that's why they fell behind many times. There were games last year Malik Monk should have started, and he didn't. And that is fair criticism of Coach Brown. It's a different team this year. You've got DeMar DeRozan here with Keon Ellis in the starting lineup. I think it gives you your best defensive lineup on the floor to start a game with many different matchups, especially in the West. It frees De'Aaron up to do the things that De'Aaron does best. It gives them the ability to switch a little bit easier as well. It helps the transition game. And Keon, if he can knock down an open three, that's all you need him to do. You don't need Keon to be a playmaker. And you don't have to go out and get shots for Keon and get him involved in the offense. He has proved that how he is playing on the offensive side of the ball does not dictate his effort on defense. It doesn't dictate his play on the other end of the floor. Another player that's exactly the same way, Keegan Murray. So all good things from Media Day. We're excited. It's going to be here before you know it. October 24th, the Kings will be tipping off. Looking forward to it a lot. I know all of you are as well. Anybody going to the game? Anybody going to hit the first game up? Grant, me, tonight, 8 o'clock. Be back. We're taking your calls. Let's get back to the chat really quick. I know we missed out on a few of those, and then we'll end with some Pete Rose talk. I do want to talk about him. And somebody in the chat basically nailed what I was going to say. So good by you. I'm not going to scroll all the way up and find it. Who was it? Was it Bain? No, it wasn't Bain. It was somebody else. I don't want to take it away from who it was. So we'll get to that in a second. Gammon with a bunch of questions. The Coutinho stuff. Yeah. No offense, Gannon. There's not much to talk about there with all that. All these years, all these high lottery picks, and we still haven't locked down the 3 position. Yep, but you got to remember, Gammon, that goes across multiple administrations. And Keegan Murray, pretty damn good fit. Now, I get that he's playing 4. His natural position is the 3. That's his natural position. Should be a natural 3. Feels like Coach Brown is pulling for Kevin. I think everybody is pulling for Kevin, not necessarily from a starting position, but he's an important part of this team right now. Kevin Huerter is going to have to play significant minutes for this team when we tip off on October 24th if you have no Trey Lyles. So, of course, everybody's pulling for Kevin. He's a hard worker. He's been through some adversity. I hope he bounces back. I think we all do. Sacramento, I say that all of you are the best and most knowledgeable fans in the NBA, and I stand by that. But sometimes you can also be the most emotional fans in the NBA when it comes to guys struggling or De'Aaron Fox. There were so many post-game shows last year that we'd come on. Fox is trash. Trade him. Get him out of here. I have been critical of De'Aaron Fox, but the reason I'm critical of De'Aaron is because I'm watching the tape. I'm running it back. I'm seeing the things that either the coaching staff might be not catching, or that was double negative, sorry, or I'm seeing the things that Fox isn't seeing necessarily in that moment. So yes, when you are the face of the franchise, that is fair criticism, but the emotional stuff, like we saw when Harrison missed that 3 in Golden State in the playoffs, If that 3 would have went in, Harrison Barnes would be a god in Sacramento. Yet, when he re-signed later in that offseason, what was the narrative? How soon can we trade Harrison Barnes? That was the narrative. So, Kevin, give him some time. He's going to be okay. I will be the first one to say, if Kevin gets the looks that I think Kevin will get this year with DeMar DeRozan on this team and some of the different lineups that Mike Brown may go with, if Kevin gets those looks and he still struggles, I get it. I'll call him out. I will, but I think it's a little bit of a different situation. But yes, everybody is definitely pulling for Kevin. DeRozan isn't a 2. His game splits have him more as a 3 since 2017. Yeah, he is closer to a 3. I don't think anybody's debating that. That's why he would be starting at the 3 here. Will Fox eclipse Curry this year? Probably not, because it's Steph Curry. I mean, maybe he'll eclipse him in certain areas, but he's never going to be bigger than Steph Curry. Gammon. Who should we pay attention to on the G League? 100% Colby Jones. It's Colby Jones. He has got to take that next step. He's going to be on a 2-way contract likely. So Colby has got to take that next step. John, thank you for posting. Yeah, you got it, buddy. My pleasure. We'd love to get your questions up here. Yes, Gammon, good to have you back in the show. Patrick, what's up, dude? Bane, I don't have that drop anymore. But you know what you get, Bane?
Damn!
Come on, Bane. What's up, dude? Maybe was it your take? Did I not acknowledge you? All right, let's talk about Charlie Hustle really quick, and then we're going to close the show out. The reason I want to talk about him is I think it's like the saddest case ever in baseball. And I'm not saying sad in the fact that Pete Rose got screwed. Pete Rose got exactly what he deserved. He never owned up for what he did until he wrote a book. And then he kind of owned up to what he did, and he profited off of what he did. You know what is far worse than the crime? The cover-up. The cover-up is far worse than the crime. And Pete Rose just couldn't bring himself to say, yeah, I did it. I did it. Let's find a way, Major League Baseball, to educate the public about gambling and the next generation about the dangers of gambling. Let's share my story. Let's find a way to turn a big negative into a positive. Didn't really happen, but gambling back then was much different than gambling back now. And I get gambling on your team. That's a whole nother level, but that's some Jonte Porter stuff. But it's mainstream now. It's everywhere. They're the sponsors of most of these shows that you watch, of the games that we watch, right? You can bet in some arenas. Think about that. You can bet in some NBA arenas. Today, Phoenix specifically. If I was betting there, I would definitely bet the under on the Suns. Anyways, not to get off track, but I'm not a believer in the Suns. You guys can call me out if I'm wrong, but the Suns are not working the way they are constructed. But anyways, getting back to what I was saying, look, gambling now is now an in thing. It's accepted. It's cool, right? And I get the differences, right? It's different having the money to gamble with versus not having the money and gambling and doing it under the table and going through a bookie and possibly putting yourself or your family in harm's way if you can't cover your debts. Whereas legally, okay, you got to explain to your wife why there's not money to pay the mortgage or why you guys can't go eat dinner at a nice restaurant, right? Not a fun conversation, but at least you had the money to do it because you've got to put the money up front because it's usually debit cards, whatever it is. I don't gamble. Maybe I should. I went 12-4 this week in the NFL pool. That's right. Blue Chaos, where are you at? coming up. I'm biting at your heels. Anyways, Pete Rose played baseball the right way. Pete Rose was the epitome of hustle. Epitome. My fly's down. Why? Because I picked the Seahawks last night? Come on, John. Nice try. Nice try, John. That's Bane's brand. John, what's your brand is asparagus, dude. John, your brand is asparagus and smelly pea. That is your brand, John. You are Mr. Asparagus Guy. Guru, what's up, man? It's been a minute. Gambling is too accessible and being marketed to young people hard. It's no good. It's similar to alcohol advertising too. That is bad too. Well, look, we can have that argument all day, right? Kids are going to get, look, Zach, you and I, we were at Bennett's a few months ago. We're not too far away in age, right? Yes, I paid Zach. Speaking of gambling, we had a friendly wager on how much Malik Monk was going to get paid, by the way, this offseason. Zach was closer to the number than I was, so I owed him dinner at Bennett's. And that was that. We had a good time. But Zach, you and I, we're close in age, relatively. We gambled as kids. What the hell was Pogs? Pogs was gambling. If your Pogs didn't flip over, the other person kept them. That was gambling. What about baseball cards? It's kind of gambling, right? I mean, the same aisle to a degree. It's the same rush because you're getting the whole pull of the pack and you don't know if you're going to get a good card or a bad card. Yes, you shouldn't market towards kids, but what I'm saying is it's much safer, my man, than the alternative. It's much safer than the alternative, than what was happening before. That's where it's on the parents. That's where parents have to be parents, and you step up and you talk about those things. You got to be transparent with your kids. Call them out if you think something's wrong. Anyways, getting back to Pete Rose. If I say anyways one more time, I'm going to give myself a damn. Pete Rose played baseball the right way. Guy hustled his ass off. They made fun of him because he would sprint to first base. That's how the whole Charlie Hustle thing started, right? Pete Rose is exactly what baseball needs today. Think about the opportunity missed for this guy to be an ambassador for baseball. Not only for the right things in baseball, hustling, playing hard, but the bad things, the gambling. Learn from me. This was Pete Rose's last interview before he passed away. And it really resonated with me. I'm going to play a clip for you right here.
When other guys will kill somebody or they'll be strung out on drugs, or they'll be.
Oops, sorry, guys.
When other guys will kill somebody or they'll be strung out on drugs, or they'll beat their wives and stuff like that. In a couple of years, they're back in the game. So I think that's the dilemma that people are struggling with right now as far as the Pete Rose case. I hurt myself. I hurt my family, no question about it. But I've been able to survive, no thanks to baseball. If I do anything surrounding the world of baseball, I have to get baseball's permission to do that. You know, I do banquets and stuff like that and make good money doing banquets. But one thing I do, guys, even today, I go around this great country of ours and I sell the game of baseball. And they don't even want me near the game of baseball. But I believe, and I could be wrong, I think Jeffrey will second this, I'm the best salesman that baseball has as far as selling the game. Because of the way I played, people understand the way I played. I played like I loved the game, which I did. And people could see that when I played the game of baseball. And it's just a shame that more players playing today, God love them, they make all the money in the world, don't have the time or don't have the fun that I had when I played. You know, I don't know if it's a change of times from the 60s and 70s and 80s to what we're about now, but it just seems like a lot of players today are in love with the paychecks and not so much the game of baseball. That was the opposite for me. I loved the game, and I got a paycheck. But I didn't get paychecks like they get today. I wish I was playing today. I got a lot of respect for the players playing today. They do a good job, and they're really good ball players.
Agree with him or not, there's a lot of truth to what he said there. But at the end of the day, Pete, at the end of the day, my man, the cover-up is what kept you away from the game of baseball. Those opportunities were there, and credit to him for still being an ambassador as much as he could. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because Pete Rose showed up at damn near every autograph signing or convention that you could think of, which is his right. Not a big deal. A lot of players do that. Wrestlers do that, old wrestlers. But opportunity missed. So I tragic. Loved the way the guy plays the game. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Outcome just wasn't what it could have been, what it should have been. So Pete Rose, dead at the age of 83, lived a full life. 83. That is a full life. John, yeah, no. I mean, that don't make no sense. What doesn't make no sense? Me saying anyways too many times? Yeah, that does not make any sense. So what a great show today. Jerry Reynolds Tuesday. Always a pleasure. Thank you to all of you that have showed up at some point. 215 were here at one point. So thank you for that. Watching across multiple channels on multiple platforms. X, we've got the show streaming to 3 different YouTube accounts. So appreciate it. We'll be back 8 o'clock tonight. Grant and I will be still talking a bunch of football. We didn't even talk football today. We did not even talk football, and I've got a lot of thoughts on week 4. Also, baseball ongoing. The Tigers knocked off the Astros in game 1 of their wild card series. That is a best of 3. So Houston, their backs are against the wall. The Mets right now on top of the Brewers, 3-2, top of the 4th inning there. And then you got baseball later tonight. The Padres and the Braves. Padres back in the playoffs. Hopefully those guys that sang that Padres song, what was it, 2 seasons ago? I hope they're not back. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? That's what's in. That was so bad. I hope they don't show up again. So anyways, hey, we are going to bounce out. We will see you at 8 o'clock tonight. Appreciate all of you. Please be back. Also, make sure that you subscribe. Do me a favor, too. If you haven't, can you give us a thumbs up or a like on the show? I'm always monitoring those. Subscribe to If You Don't Like That. Whoa. Damn. That was a squeak. Subscribe to If You Don't Like That on YouTube. It's where all of our Kings programming is at. You can find the entire library there, and all of this year's pre, post, and halftime shows will be streaming there and on the X platform. And make sure you are following the Kings Court on X and following the show on Spotify. Man, I got to get out. These teeth are bugging me. I'm still learning how to talk. Anyways, Spotify, also Apple Podcast. Get there. You get your audio exclusives, your morning shoot-arounds. Those are coming back. You will have a new morning shoot-around tomorrow that's different from the live show. The live shows go up there as well. But again, looking forward to being back 8 o'clock tonight with Grant. Make sure you make it a priority. Come back. It'll be fun. We'll be taking your calls. Matt, my man, Matt, you want to talk bodybuilding? 8 o'clock tonight, dude. Just if you're going to do the bodybuilding thing, don't show up in bodybuilding gear, Matt. I'm just going to give you one piece of advice. Like, probably stay off camera, Matt. We don't want to see the tan. We don't want to see the Speedo, Matt. You know, we don't want to see the dehydration that you have to go through before the contest. But Matt, my man, get up in here. We'll talk some bodybuilding with you. It's all good. Mr. Olympia coming up. So, all right, great show today. Huge thanks to Jerry Reynolds. Huge thanks to Bennett's Westside Grill for sponsoring the show as well. We're back 8 o'clock tonight. Grant and Ryan open forum. We'll be talking also King's training camp. We'll have some updates from day one of King's training camp. Already getting some text messages, talking to some sources. So we'll get you the most up-to-date information there as well. Go Kings, light the damn beam. Court is dismissed.